And Harvey was obsessed with me being in. She said, "You'll win the Oscar. You'll win the Oscar if you go in supporting." I said, "No, I'm going in supporting for Pieces of April." He said, "You're never going to work again." And he abused me. He was abusive and threatened me with. Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible, you guys. He was terrible.
Hello and welcome to My Hollywood Story. I'm Stacey Wilson Hunt. My guest today is the Oscar-nominated and Golden Globe-winning actor Patricia Clarkson, whose latest film, Lilly, tells the story of the late American labor rights activist Lilly Ledbetter and her role in the passage of the U.S.'s Fair Pay Act of 2009. I first met and interviewed Patricia, or Patty as she's often known, in 2009 at an event for the HBO limited series Sharp Objects, alongside her friend and the director Jean-Marc Vallée, who tragically passed away 2 years later in 2021. She was so passionate then, as she was in front of an audience at Soho House, West Hollywood, in speaking about her craft and the life-changing collaborations she's had along the way. Listen in as Patty reflects on her feature debut in Brian DePalma's 1987 film The Untouchables, and later, her breakout indie role in Lisa Cholodenko's critically acclaimed feature, High Art. Patty also reveals how it felt to be relentlessly bullied by producer Harvey Weinstein over what he saw as a competing awards campaign between his film The Station Agent, in which Patty appeared, and her Oscar-nominated role in 2003's Pieces of April. Patty also shares why her Emmy-winning role as Aunt Sarah on HBO's 6 Feet Under remains one of her most coveted career milestones. This episode of My Hollywood Story was recorded live at Soho House, West Hollywood. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you think. Please welcome my special guest, Patricia Clarkson. I told you they were excited. You're the first person to do a kick when you sat down. This is going to be a special one. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm 65, so life is good.
Good.
Very good.
I love to hear that. And congratulations on your latest film, Lilly, which is about the labor rights activist Lilly Ledbetter. And your performance, as usual, is stunning.
Thank you.
How did it feel to tell her story, a very important story?
It was, it's hard for me to talk. I'm very emotionally attached to her.
That's good,
and
though.
to this, because she was a hero in my life, in my upbringing. I was raised in a family of 5 daughters. My mother was a powerhouse. She ran the city of New Orleans. And so Lilly Ledbetter was a god to us. And so it was the privilege of my career. Look, I've played a lot of unsavory characters. I think, I've poisoned my children. I've just, I've
Hey, don't spoil. I'm going to bring that up in a little bit.
But but to play a true, genuine American hero, a woman, an ordinary woman from Possum Trot, Alabama, who rose to extraordinary heights, was a privilege, and it was something that will stay with me. Lilly will be with me the rest of my life, and her beautiful daughter, Vicky. That apple falls very close to that tree, and I'm just forever thankful.
I can't wait to talk more about Lilly in a little bit. But first, Patricia, we're going back to New Orleans, all the way back to your origin story, and you've hinted a little bit at your family, one of 5 children, one of 5 girls, no less. I want to hear about your parents first, and how did your family settle in that part of the United States?
Well, my mother was born and raised in New Orleans. She's a diehard New Orleanian. I mean, I think, and she was also a major politician. So, I mean, she sold real estate to pay for 5 educations. And my father had a master's in public health. He ran a children's home. He then worked for LSU Medical School. Was the first to allocate funds for AIDS research. One of the first. And so I had these remarkable parents, but I was born and raised in the great city of New Orleans that I love. I always say my heart is New Orleanian, my body is New York, because I.
I like those can complement each other.
Yeah, well, they're sister cities in a lot of ways, and so, but I was, I had a very, very middle class upbringing. I didn't grow up fancy. I didn't grow up uptown. My father was a Navy brat, so he grew up all over the world, and his father ran the naval base in New Orleans, and that's how my mom and dad met. And they were high school sweethearts. They were a homecoming king and queen. You ought to see the photo. My father in his football jersey, my mother in her 1940s white suit with a crown. I mean, it's just to die for.
It's like something from a movie.
Yes, it is. And so they got married very young and had 5 daughters. But my mother said the easiest time of her life was raising 5 daughters who were 16, 18 months apart. And so she said the best time of their lives would be on a Sundays. My father held jobs. He's working for Shell. He was, they were living in married student housing. My father was going to Tulane to try to get his undergraduate and then eventually his master's. But so I remember they had a dresser, some old dresser, and it didn't even have drawers anymore. It just had boxes as the drawers. And I'll never forget that. But my mother would, on a Sunday afternoon, she would cook, and my father would come home because he worked on Sundays, and she would put the 5 of us on a blanket in our little 90s or something, and we would sit. There was no real furniture in the house, and they would all sit on a blanket, and it was the most. My mother and father said it was the easiest part of their life, because then we all became teenagers and life was unbearable.
That sounds so beautiful and so simple and just wonderful. Like, what a beautiful image that is.
No, it was. We didn't have much, but we did. I had remarkable parents who loved me unconditionally. They loved everything. The belief they had in me to, survive this industry was unwavering, and from an early age. And so, I've lost both of them somewhat recently, and it's been rough.
I'm so sorry.
It's rough.
I'm very sorry.
But they leave. They leave. There is a wake that they leave behind that I swim in.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And did they expose you to the arts and cultural experiences in your town?
Oh, yes. My mother, who is a big mix. She's Lithuanian Jew, Spanish, Irish and German, peasant Irish and German. Anyway, but her bubby, this extraordinary woman that I unfortunately didn't meet, she died at 69, but she was my mother's lifeline. And she took my mother to the ballet, the symphony, everything. I have pictures of them with their long gloves on and their ball. And Bubby lived in the French Quarter, and she would take them by horse and carriage to the opera. You can't make this up. And so my mother, after Katrina, when my mother was rebuilding the city with Mitch Landrieu, the great mayor Mitch Landrieu. So my mother was president of the city council. And everyone said, why are you rebuilding, the Mahalia Jackson opera? Why are you rebuilding these? And my mother said, darling, if we don't have art, we have nothing. And so, because, yes, New Orleans is a town of jazz, and of course, but that's all part of it. She put the musicians on the street. After Katrina, that's when she started blocking off the streets in the French Quarter. And so we grew up we just grew up in an artistic house. And they loved that I was an actress.
And when did you become an actor?
Well, I was, I did a lot of plays in junior high and high school. I don't know if I was ever good.
What do you consider your first performance?
Well, my very first performance, I was 14, and I got cast over a senior in high school, and I played this. That was in O. Perry Walker High School, and then my first real performance in Well, I did plays. You know, I did plays. And then my first TV. The only time I was ever on screen before I did the Untouchables, but I did Spencer for Hire. Spencer for Hire. And I played a murderer. Like a Harvard student who was a murderer. And I was very good at it.
But wait, I want to talk about speech pathology first. What led you to potentially go down that path? And then I assume acting diverted you from that path.
Well, no, I was an actress through high school. And then I got off to LSU. And I decided, maybe I don't want to be an actress. And I was going to study speech pathology. And then I got really depressed. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I want to act. I really want to go to New York.
And you were depressed because you knew you wanted to perform.
Well, because I wasn't acting. And I made a very important phone call. So I was a tri-delta, delta, which delta would you like to try? So I was a tri-delta, and which was not really my life, not really me. And there was a house phone, and I called my mother, and I said, Mom, I'm not coming back. I want to go to New York. And this is why my mother she was a pain in the ass, but extraordinary. And she said, Patty, I'll bring the station wagon. I have a friend who put that out. I have it sitting out in my apartment in New York. It is framed. And it just says, Patty, I'll bring the station wagon. So that's what happened. I just said, I want to go. I want to go to New York. And that's what I did. But I had to finish my bachelor's. I went to Fordham and finished, and then I went to Yale School of Drama.
Wait, you just skirted over Yale School of Drama as if it was like a doctor's appointment or something. Tell me about Yale School of Drama. What did you learn there? Did you have any classmates who, like yourself, would go on to great acclaim in the business?
Sure. I mean, Yale was extraordinary. I mean, in that Fordham was magnificent also. I got into Yale because of a great mentor I had, Joe Jezewski, at Fordham. And I came my junior year, I had 2 years left, and a wonderful, famous kind of Broadway star, Deborah Monk, was my acting teacher, and, but Joe Jezewski took me under his wing, and he just guided me for the next 2 years. I did Hedda Gabler as my senior project with him. But he said, everybody believed in order to get into Yale, you had to know somebody. I didn't know anybody. But Joe said, no, you'll get in. Let's just start working on your monologues. So I did a contemporary and then a classical piece. And this was the day and age, you guys. How we lived, where they would take 6 women and 10 men. Yeah.
I'm surprised they took even 6, frankly.
I know. And so I did, I went off to Yale, but Yale was extraordinary because it demanded everything of you. And it was rigorous, and you were doing 3 plays at a time and studying and scene work. But I met the great, unfortunately late Richard Greenberg, my dearest friend, oldest dearest friend, the great Dick Beebe. They were writing for me. Dick Beebe wrote 4 plays for me while I was there. So I had this incredible relationship with so many people there. My classmates were Dylan Baker, Jane Atkinson, Chris Noth, but it was a beautiful ride, and it changed me as an actor.
What did you learn in school that you have carried with you? Are there tenets of work and theater and training that stick with you to today?
Oh God. Well, it started really at Yale. I realized, I always thought I was just kind of, the lovely girl, like the ingenue, although I never really had the voice of an ingenue, kind of a drunk ingenue. But,
the best kind, in fact.
and so, but Yale, I realized I could play the pretty, I could do La Ronde and be the kind of beautiful girl that they were lusting for. But then I could turn around and play the bawd in Pericles and be like, you can do no more than you can do. I could be like, rah, and I played an 8-year-old murderer. See, the wheels were spinning. It was a take on the bad sea, tap, tap, tap until you're bloody and dead. It forced me to do so many things.
So you weren't typecast, is your point?
No. Earl Gister, who ran the acting program, specifically would cast you against type and really wanted you to stretch and be, and it just forever, I realized this is the career I want. I want to play everything. I want to be able to play everything because I would just be bored playing, which I've played some suburban ladies, but then I want to play this suburban lady who poisons her children.
There's more than one type of suburban lady, right?
Yes.
So did you have a plan for yourself after school? Did you see yourself going to New York, working the boards, as they say, in theater? Did you have dreams of Hollywood? What were your aspirations?
No, I didn't. I was so steeped in theater at Yale. We didn't, now they have film program there, but we didn't study film. But I got a very big agent out of Yale because I did a play at the Yale Rep, cast in What the Butler Saw, Joe Orton, brilliant play, but I played the young sexy girl, and then I got a very big agent, and that really that's how I succeeded. That's how I got to start working.
And this was an agent who was looking for parts for you in TV and film.
He represented Merrill and Sigourney, and he came to Yale and signed me. And so I had a very big foot up. It was advantageous, to say the least, to have Sam Cohen looking after you.
Of course.
And so I did some Manhattan Theater Club. I got a beautiful play with like Nancy Marchand and Tim Daly. God, he was hot. And I had such a crush.
He still is, actually.
No, he is. He's absolutely
I have to
beautiful.
ask about Nancy Marchand, who of course played Tony Soprano's mom in Sopranos,
Yes,
one of the
yes.
great artists of our time. What was it like to work with her?
That was like my first play in New York City. And she was tough. But she was kind, she was tough and kind. And I learned a lot from her. And but that was my first big play in New York at Manhattan Theater Club. And with Vivian Madelon directing. And I can't remember, I can't believe I can remember these. And then I did Spencer, and then
So did you move to LA at some point?
No.
Okay,
no.
so you were always in New York. Okay.
But then I got this big Broadway show. Well, it's a great story. I went in to audition for House of Blue Leaves with John Guare, written by John Guare, and I went in for the head of the Lincoln Center. It was being done at Lincoln Center with Swoosie Kurtz and Stockard Channing and Ben Stiller. And, Ben wasn't cast at the time, but they were in the middle of casting the rest of the cast, and I played the deaf movie star, Corinna. And I went in and I gave this audition, and the casting director said, "Come back. I'm going to have you read for John Guare, the head of the Lincoln Center, everything." I bought a new dress. I'm still a little Southern, so I had my big yellow hair, and I was like my big shoulder pads on my dress, and I waltz in and I give this audition, and I get a standing ovation, and they are clapping. I fall off the chair. I do. It's very physical and funny and everything. I didn't get the part. But 9 months later, they cast Julie Haggerty, and then 9 months later, I get a message on my machine from Jerry Zaks, and he said, "Patty, Jerry, you're gonna come in. You're gonna come do Corinna for us. Yeah, you're gonna come on. Call me back." And it was more money than I'd ever seen, and I was on Broadway. So 9 months later out of Yale, yeah.
It must have been the shoulder pads and the hair. It
I
stuck
think
with
it
them.
was.
So I want to talk about The Untouchables, which was the first time I saw you on screen, and your first feature, if I'm not mistaken. What a debut, Patty. 1987, you played Catherine Ness, of course, directed by Brian DePalma, written by David Mamet. Followed the true story of Prohibition agent Elliot Ness, who ultimately took down the notorious gangster Al Capone in 1930s Chicago. And is it true that DePalma made your part bigger after principal shooting had begun?
It got a little, well, he did a remarkable thing. First of all, Lynn Stallmaster, the great Lynn Stallmaster, I went to read for him, and he said, come back in for Brian, don't wear any makeup. I said, oh God. And wear like a Little House on the Prairie dress. You need to just look more like a nice Midwestern girl. I said, okay. So I came in, and there was a reader in the room, but Brian read with me. Brian read Eliot Ness with me. And the next thing I knew, I was flying to Chicago to meet Kevin Costner. And but Brian, and it was an amazing shoot. It was wall-to-wall men. I mean, I spoke about this.
You're one of few women who ever appears on screen in this film.
but it was also, you guys, it's 1985, 6, and it's raining men. It's a sea of men. It's men in front of the camera, behind me. My dresser was male. My makeup artist was male. It was just men. My mother came to visit me on the set, and she was like, Patty, there's not a woman in sight. Not that that's a bad thing, but like, I don't think it's good for the industry. I was like, no, I know, Mother.
She would prove to be very correct with that assumption. I mean,
yes. She saw it. It was just visible as day. And unfortunately, very few people of color. Very.
That's only a recent shift, by the way.
And so it was, but Brian did a beautiful thing. I wasn't making much money because it was my first movie, and he knew I was struggling.
Struggling financially.
Yeah, I mean, it's New York. I was, trying to pay bills and live in a, expensive, well, it wasn't a fancy apartment, but it was still expensive. And he said, I think Ms. Ness has to be in the courtroom scene. And he said, and guess what? I guess Paramount's just going to have to pay you for a month to sit and, you're going to sit in New York, but they're going to have to pay you because they're going to have to hold you. I said, oh my God, Brian, I love you.
That's incredible to have an advocate like that.
Yeah.
And obviously Brian is known for Carrie and Dressed to Kill, and obviously super stylized, slow motion, split screen, like very experimental as compared to his peers. He came up with Scorsese and Spielberg.
Yes.
What did you learn about filmmaking from Brian that has stuck with you?
Well, he did a lot of takes for me because he had to figure out where I was, what level, and I realized, that scene where I say, why don't you come up and brush my hair? I literally did it like 40 times. And I just said, Brian, I don't know how many, but I realized that what he was doing was he was finding the right timbre, the right tone. He was finding how I really lived on screen. And it made me comfortable. He made me comfortable in front of the camera.
Was there a learning curve for you transitioning from theater to features? Okay.
Yes. And not a big one, but an important one. And Brian was instrumental in that.
What a great guy.
And so was Kevin Costner, who was amazing to me.
And what was Kevin like back then? He was pretty new too at that point.
Dreamy, but dreamy and beautiful. And so caring for me. And I think he forgot that I wasn't really pregnant.
He's being protective of you. That's good to hear, and I'm glad you had a good experience because, as we know, it's not always the case. I want to revisit a classic, I would say, kitschy entry in your canon, which is the Dead Pool, the fifth entry in Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry series. You play Samantha Walker, an intrepid local journalist, and this came out in 1988. And oddly, the movie
about big hair.
It was big hair. I thought you looked pretty cute. The movie also starred a young Jim Carrey, who did not last too long in the movie, unfortunately, and Liam Neeson as well. So I've spoken to people who've worked with Clint, either being directed by Clint or acting opposite him. And a word usually comes up, which is he's practical. It's you do it and you move on. You do it and you move on. It's not a De Palma 40 takes situation. This is a man who wants to get the work done. And he didn't direct this movie, but he still is inserting his ethos into the process. So tell me what you learned from Clint.
I better get that first take right. And because I would have the majority of the dialogue, and we'd finish the scene, and he'd be like, that was good for me. Was it good for you? I was like, Okay. And I realized that a lot of my performance in that is like the first one take. Like I sometimes these big scenes, maybe we would do two, maybe. Or, occasionally if it included action, it would be 3. But he was quick. I remember I had to be very prepared, and I had to kind of, because he was lovely to me, lovely. And he likes petite blondes. And he with big hair. And but he was, he was just fast and kind of, but he was quick and agile, and he didn't want to overthink anything. He wasn't he never wanted to intellectualize the scene. He really liked it just free and open and loose, and I kind of loved it because it really changed me as an actress.
And it's just a good way to work and to be flexible in your approach.
Very.
So I'd like to jump ahead a decade to the movie that really changed the way that I see you as an artist, which is High Art in 1998. And you play Greta, a drug-addicted German actress. And this was, of course, written and directed by Lisa Cholodenko and starring Ali Sheedy and Radha Mitchell. And I think this film really blew me away on a lot of levels, and your performance earned an Indie Spirit nomination. And it's interesting, I think about your work, and I think of you as a consummate character actor. And it's not a term we apply to women very often. It's usually relegated to men. And I'm wondering how you feel about that term.
I think every real actor is a character actor.
Right.
I mean, we're
but not everyone has the range that you have.
Well, maybe because they're too vain. The only reason there's no room for vanity in acting. And once you put vanity, unless you are playing some really glamorous drop dead lady. I'm currently sort of doing that now in Albuquerque. I got to fly to Albuquerque tonight and shoot tomorrow.
Better be responsible tonight. Don't get too crazy.
But I'm playing this very glamorous woman who's been married 5 times, and but no. I think it's like character is the essence of acting. I think we always have to transform. We always have to rely on sometimes our better selves comes into play when we act. Sometimes our darker selves come into play, and you have to be willing. And sometimes it's both, and I like it actually when it's both. And but High Art was transformational for me. I mean, it really changed everything for me in this industry. At 38, it just set a whole new place for me to begin to really live in this industry the way I wanted to live in it and to work in it.
Did you feel seen, as we say, for the first time after that?
Yes. And I'm not German. I've never even smoked a joint. I've never done drugs. The day is young. And I'm not a lesbian, but love is love. So I mean, it's like but it was just. And Lisa, I'm forever, ever thankful to Lisa Cholodenko for the rest of my life, because there's something she saw in me in this character, and she cast me that day.
Did you audition for her?
Yes,
You did.
I flew back. I was in LA trying to get a job, and then I read this script, and I said, to my agent, I said, I really love this part. And so I flew back, and I walked in, and when I was younger, I was living with Richard Greenberg. We were dearest of friends, best of friends, roommates. And he had a German agent that I would talk to all the time and have dinner with. So I had the German in my head. And thank God, thank you, Helen Merrill, thank you. And, and I just walked in, and I thought, I've played so many suburban, like, is she going to see me as this character? But she did, and it changed my life, it changed my career.
It's a stunning performance, and just a beautiful movie. And onto a very different film, The Green Mile in 1999, written and directed by Frank Darabont, and of course based on Stephen King's short story about a Depression-era inmate who has supernatural powers, and co-starring Tom Hanks, Bonnie Hunt, Sam Rockwell, and of course the late Michael Clark Duncan.
Who was just a beautiful
He really was
being.
Extraordinary. And
Beautiful.
your key scene in this film is you're very ill, and he is brought out of the prison to essentially heal you and sort of suck the disease out of you. What do you remember about the way that Michael wielded his large size? He was a very big guy, and he had a stature that we don't normally associate with what I would call beautiful acting, because he was such a big man. How do you recall your interactions with him, and what was his approach to this part? This is a really difficult role that he had to play.
Well, he was first, this man was working for the Con Ed, and they brought in an acting coach for him. They knew he was right. They were delivering coolers of food to him, Warner Brothers, to bulk him, to beef him, to get him to the size. His arm was, so when I was diminishing, Frank was like, I hate to ask you this, but I need you just as thin as you can with staying healthy, but I need you. And I was just like, oh. And so
You did look hungry, I have to say.
yeah, and so I know, and I was, and so his arm, the width of Michael Clark Duncan's arm was wider than my body, basically, but he was everything you think you see is exactly who he was, what he was. He was a tender and beautiful soul. I mean, that scene was easy for me because I just adored this man.
You see, he had such a childlike innocence in the way he played that part, and I didn't know him personally, but he just seemed like a real gift. Yeah.
He was, it's sad. We lost, I think, someone who would have gone on to continue to do beautiful work.
Agree. And Frank Darabont, too, of course.
Oh, Frank. Frank's a fabulous director. I mean, fabulous. And I shot that scene for a week.
That's a lot of lying in bed. You have worked with some incredible people. And on that note, I'd like to talk about The Pledge, 2001 movie you made, directed by Sean Penn and starring Jack Nicholson and Robin Wright. And you have a smaller role in this film as a woman who has lost her child. And Jack's character is a retiring cop who is committed to finding the killer of this child. And I've met Sean recently for the first time, and this guy is quite the legend. There's no one like Sean Penn.
He is.
And what is he like as a director? Because he really has made some beautiful movies.
Well, I know Sean. I've known Sean. I used to date his best friend, Joseph Fittarelli, a brilliant composer. Anyway, so I know Sean well. I mean, and Robin, I was at their wedding. So I've known Sean forever. He just played a big tribute to me last night at this event where I was given an award. And so, it's hard for me to separate him because he's such a brilliant force. He lives to create. He lives to, his everything about him is artistic. And I flew to the ends of the earth, the ends way out in Vancouver where we were shooting, to literally for 3 days to fall apart. I lost my child, to have this massive emotional breakdowns, and then get back on a plane.
But it was worth it just for the experience.
Yes, I mean he again has a free spirit. He wants things to be organic and present. He's very present, and he sees everything. Nothing gets by him. He's eagle-eyed, and I loved working with him.
And what about Jack? Have to ask about Jack.
Oh, Jack was fabulous. And, he was very respectful of me and everything, because I had this big emotional scene with him, and he was like, you got to keep doing that. Like, you're gonna, you need to take a break maybe when you're done with this. And I said, yeah, Jack. I said, I got to get back on a plane and go home. And he goes, yeah, we'll have some cocktails on the plane.
That sounds like what we think of Jack to be. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was a good experience. It's a really gorgeous movie.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so proud to be a part of
very,
that film.
very, very beautiful. And now we come to one of my favorite films, which I rewatched the other night and just can't believe that it was made because it's so beautiful, which is Far From Heaven.
Oh, God,
In
yes,
2002,
yes.
Todd Haynes. Written and directed by Todd and produced by the legendary Christine Vachon. Starring Julianne Moore, Dennis Quaid, Viola Davis, and you, of course, and Dennis Haysbert. And for those who haven't seen it, it centers on a 1957 Connecticut couple navigating a marital crisis as they are forced to accept the husband's homosexuality. And Todd is one of my favorite filmmakers because he has really devoted his time and art to telling stories about people in the margins. And you have a supporting role opposite Julianne's character. What most struck you about the way Todd works with actors, and especially Julianne? They've made a number of films together. What is special about the way he treats your process?
Well, he again is an artist, and I mean, I remember that they were literally painting the leaves on the trees. I'm not kidding.
The leaves were very vibrant.
And everything was so meticulously done with the costumes, Sandy, the brilliant Sandy Powell. Everything was etched. Everything was planned, but yet when we got on the set, it had a certain reserve, which I found very rewarding because so many sets I'd been on were so loosey-goosey and wild and then this was a very formal set in a way, but it was right for the tone, for again the timbre of the piece, and Julianne Moore is just a brilliant, great actress and a love bug, and we got on. I just adore her, and she's just a beautiful person first, and then just happens to be a great actress, but. So I loved shooting that film, and I loved being a part of it. It was a privilege to be a part of this.
And it's interesting, you and Julianne both had experiences working in soap operas early in your career. I love talking to actors about what they learned in soaps. I've spoken to Matt Bomer and Bryan Cranston about the soap experience.
I played a nun.
What did you learn working in soaps? Because we can sort of giggle about it, but it is great training. The rigor is quite impressive for what you're actually asked to deliver at work.
I could never have survived on a soap. It's brutal work. It was brutal. I mean, I don't know how they learn all those lines, do this. They have very little time, very little takes, they're the hardest working people in show business. I don't say that lightly. I don't. When I was about to graduate Fordham, I was offered one, and then I went to Yale instead. But then I needed money, so when I was back, I can't remember when I did this. It was when I played the nun. But
what did your nun character do? I'm so curious.
I think then I turned out maybe not to be a nun. I can't remember.
In a coma, probably.
I can't remember, but it's very difficult work, very.
And so many people started there, and I think it's excellent training.
Yes.
And on to one of my other favorite roles of yours, Sarah O'Connor in 6 Feet Under. Also in 2002, you won 2 Emmys for this role for Alan Ball's masterpiece of a series, playing Frances Conroy's character's very free-spirited sister. You have called this role a blessing, and I'm curious why you use that word.
I just had to show up. It was so beautifully written, so funny, so organic, it was just a dream job. And working with Franny Conroy and Kathy Bates, they called us the 3 tenors, and they'd be like, "Get the 3 tenors on the set." I had these crazy scenes, and then these beautiful scenes and heartbreaking. It was just such a monumental character.
Did that character feel familiar to you? Were there parts of you that you saw in her?
No, not really. I'm not a hippie. I'm not hippie-ish, and it's just not who I really am. I'm a free spirit. So yes, the free-spirited part was me, and I'm still kind of girlish at times. So that's what I leaned into. But it was a dream job. It was a dream job.
One of the great shows of all time, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I'd like to talk about Pieces of April now, for which you earned an Oscar nomination, deservedly so, for your role as a mother dying of cancer, and her name is Joy Burns. Mm-hmm. And this film had, I think, a $300,000 budget. It was
$250.
Made in 16 days, shot by Peter Hedges, the wonderful Peter Hedges. And now I feel like this is the kind of movie that is either not made today, or if it is made, the likelihood of us seeing it is very light.
Those days are fading.
Or would sell to streaming. What did you enjoy about that really, really independent guerrilla filmmaking style? It's a lot of like shots in the back seat with the camera over the seat. It's just really spare and really beautiful.
Oh, we had nowhere to go. Like we would, Oliver Platt, one of the great actors in this world, and my beautiful daughter and son and my mother, we would shoot a scene, and our producer, John, would go buy us sandwiches, and we'd sit in the car and eat our lunch because we had nowhere to go. I mean, we didn't have even a honey wagon. We didn't have a kind of little trailer. We would sit in this little, Oliver was larger than the station wagon. And
He's
this
not a
poor
small man.
Oliver Platt is 6'6". He was like, so he would be sitting in the station wagon, and we'd sit and we'd order our sandwiches and we'd eat our sandwiches, and then we'd roll up our bag. They'd throw away our sandwiches and be like, okay, well, let's shoot again. And I changed in a bathroom. It was so guerrilla. But the movie, that's the heart and soul of the movie. The movie is so loose and so beautiful and organic, and Peter Hedges is he's such an incredible writer. And that, again, that part was such a privilege. It was a dreamboat of a part. It was tough, but kind of in my wheelhouse. It was very funny and sarcastic and very heartbreaking.
Very understated, though.
Very.
I think we're used to seeing like what we call cancer movies, overly emotive, dripping in tears. This was a very staid performance from him. Right.
And very wry. And that's who Joy was, and that's Peter. It was slightly based on his mother, and so he cried a lot during the shooting and we'd all be like, oh, Peter's crying. Okay, hold on. And we'd wait for him to finish crying.
Giving him a hug. So I'd like to go to Oscar night. When you're sitting there, and I talked to Kate Hudson about this recently when she lost for her nominations for Almost Famous. And I'm so interested in that moment of when the names are being said and you say to yourself, could it happen? Is it going to be me? Did you allow yourself that moment?
Sure, we all fantasize and we hope for the best. I don't think I had a shot in hell, but I wanted to believe I did somehow. But, I was at the Oscars with a $250,000 movie. My dress, my underwear, my jewels cost more, my shoes cost more than the film. I think my underwear, because I had to have special underwear, it was a very sheer dress, was more expensive than the film.
So just being invited was a gift into itself.
Well, it was. Of course, and I took Peter Hedges.
Oh, that's
and because I recently split with the man I had been with for many years, and so I took Peter Hedges and his wife Susan. They were my dates to the Oscars. Yeah, so it was kind of, it all came full circle. It was
and you lost to Renee Zellweger, who of course deserved it for Cold Mountain.
Yes,
she was quite wonderful.
Wonderful.
And now we come to another seminal performance in a seminal movie, The Station Agent. In 2003, written and directed by Tom McCarthy, who would, of course, go on to win Best Picture for Spotlight, co-starring Peter Dinklage and Bobby Cannavale. The rapport among the three of you is so special in this movie, and I wanted to know how much time you had to get to know each other before you, I'm assuming also a small budget here. Did you workshop? Did you rehearse? It's 3 New York actors, right? What kind of rapport did you build with each other before you started filming?
Well, first of all, we were supposed to go a year before we did, and then we lost the financing. Tom wrote this movie for the three of us. I didn't know Tom, but he was a fan, and we had the same agent. And Bobby wrote it for Pete. And it's a funny story. When he was trying to raise funding for it, a studio exec said, you know, the small guy in the film, do you think you could put Brad Pitt in there? And Tom said, no.
That sounds like something an agent would say.
So that was very rough and tumble. I mean, my trailer was the man who financed the movie. It was his car trailer, and there were no windows in it. It was like I mean, and it was such a beautiful film, and it's probably the film that I've done that everybody is attached to. And but Pete and Bobby, I mean, talk about dreamy, and we had to just shoot. We didn't have any time to really, but we bonded quickly just because we were all New York actors, and we knew we were staying in a they have the orange logo, not a Holiday Inn, but what's Howard Johnson's on the side of the highway in New Jersey. Yeehaw!
It's very fitting for your characters, though, I must say.
It was like, and it was these old hotel, it had the balcony and the pool, and we had these huge refrigerators in our room. And I said, "Was there a body in this refrigerator at some point?" It was crazy, but that was a beautiful experience all the way through. And again, Tom had to really be flexible. We were supposed to shoot at the ocean one day by the water, and we couldn't get there, and we everything had to kind of shift and be from day to day because we just had no money and no time. And but I loved every single minute of that.
And Tom is also an actor.
Yes, a wonderful actor.
A really great actor from The Wire, and he was in Meet the
Yes.
Parents, among many other things. How does being directed by an actor feel differently to you, if at all?
I love being directed by Tom because he again, very organic, very emotionally connected to every scene, which is how I approach acting. It's what is my emotional connection in everything I do, and he really understood that.
And now I'd like to talk about Shutter Island. You have a very intriguing role in Scorsese's horror masterpiece, which of course is based on Dennis Lehane's novel. Stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo as U.S. agents who are investigating the disappearance of a patient at a mental institution. And you have a really seminal, great scene with Leonardo in the cave. And I don't know if it's a spoiler, but this is, we believe, to be part of Leo's imagination. We come to find out later, etc. But in this moment, we don't know this. And you are playing the scene as if you are the escaped patient and he is investigating your disappearance. I have to ask about Martin's direction in this moment. And at this point, he and Leo were developing their rapport. What was unique to you that you witnessed about the way he worked with Leo, but also what did you learn about his style that impacted your approach?
Well, there's only one Martin Scorsese. And Marty is, he's a divine spirit. He is the consummate of combining broad, big gestures and really hardcore moments. And so he loves the large and the small, and he loves it when it comes together. And so I arrived on that set. I was shooting the Woody Allen at the time also. And so I had to leave Woody Allen and go to Marty. So it was like Woody, Marty. And my sister, my mother. And so thank you for getting that.
We've got some film buffs in the room.
So I arrived on the set, and what was good is I was kind of overwhelmed, exhausted. So it's always, you sometimes do your best work when you're just a little shattered. And I just said, Marty, I had ideas. I was like, I think I've hurt my leg and I've got a canteen. He was like, get her a canteen, get her bandages. I was like, yeah, I think I'm like, and he just goes with he loves actors. I mean, he's the most glorious human being. I mean, he lives for us. I mean, as actors, he lives for us. And you just want to shoot all day with him and never leave because it's just, and Leo is brilliant and again, consummate and committed and professional and, for being such a mega star, but just in tune and emotionally driven.
Does he chat when the camera isn't rolling? Is he, because a lot of people stay in character or go to their trailer, is he a communal guy on set?
Leo?
Leo. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. And he's worked with Marty, and they are kindred spirits, and but it's Marty who's just he's full of such joy. It's unending, and yet it's such darkness, but it's very French in a way that it's even the darkest moments come from love and joy in an odd way. They're kissing cousins, and you have to kind of but that is how Marty lives on a set, and you have to be ready to improv, to go to different places, to really you have to just be free, very free,
And prepared, very prepared.
very prepared, but very free, because he's going to shoot the scene 6 ways from Sunday, and so you got to sit in it, but not sit too tight. So
Incredible. The movie is worth a rewatch. It is so stunning. And now I'd like to talk about your Golden Globe winning performance in Sharp Objects, one of the great limited series of the last 10 years on HBO. You played Adora Krellin, and you are the mom we mentioned earlier who has poisoned her kids. And now we come to that very, very sad role, but also very delicious. Co-starring Amy Adams and Chris Messina, and directed by the late, great Jean-Marc Vallée. And actually, I did an event for the show for Emmys back then. And Mark was there, you were there, and it feels just surreal to know that he's not with us. He died Christmas 2021, and it was a major shock to all of us.
we were kindred spirits because we're
I
both
could
crazy.
see it.
We're both crazy. And
Well, you said something on stage, and I wanted to ask you. You said, thanking him for your Globe, you said, you demanded everything of me except sex, which is how it should be, which I really liked. But I wanted to ask, what did he demand of you as an actor?
Well, he just wanted it. He was tough, and he had this brilliant lighting designer. So there wasn't again, loose, free, but chaotic. And we never rehearsed a scene. And I remember this one very big scene I had with Chris Messina. And we had to start, and he did long takes. He'd like to get everything in one big, and we'd start outside the door. And I had to walk in with Chris Messina and go up the stairs to talk to him about Amy Adams, who was just a brilliant and beautiful actress, one of my favorites. And we walk in, and before we start, he goes, hey, I can't do his French kid. He's French Canadian. He's like, hey, talk about the wallpaper. Talk about when you're coming in. Tell him about the house. You want to tell him about the, what's important about the house. I was like, so I've already got 4 pages of dialogue, and I'm like, oh my God, it's 4, and we have to walk up the stairs, and then I have to dissolve into tears at the top of the stairs as I'm talking about my daughter with Chris. And he goes, let's shoot. And I'm like, okay. And I'm standing out the door with Chris Messina, and he still quotes this right there. And I look at him, and I hear rolling, and I say, hey, Chris, let's fail.
Just for fun.
And that's kind of how I approached this. It was wild. It was always unpredictable, inspiring. Jean-Marc Vallée was inspiring to me. We lost one of the great directors of this era.
I remember asking Reese Witherspoon and Laura Dern about him directing Wild, and wondering why they wouldn't have wanted a woman to direct this story. It's such an intensely female story, Cheryl Strayed's novel, or memoir rather. And they just said nobody brought the vision that Mark brought to the movie, because that movie needed chaos, sort of a chaotic approach. And I think in hindsight, he really was the perfect person.
He was the perfect person for Sharp Objects. It would never have been that series without him. and with Amy.
Of course.
It would never have been that series.
Yeah.
No.
I really miss him. That's a real loss.
It was a true. It was a remarkable time to get to work with him and do that part. That was frightening, but I loved her. You can't, as difficult as that character is, and wrong and terrible in ways. I loved her.
Yeah.
I loved her. You have to love the characters you play, or you can't play them.
Very tragic. And before we get to Lily, I want to talk about one last role that I absolutely love. This movie. It was a little understated. I don't know if it hit in the way that I hoped, which is She Said, 2022, directed by Maria Schrader, centering, of course, on the true story of the New York Times reporters Jody and Meghan. The reporting that appeared in a seminal piece that ultimately took down Harvey Weinstein. And 82 women came forward with their allegations against Harvey. And you play a real-life person, the Pulitzer Prize-winning editor Rebecca Corbett. And this movie is hard to watch. It's because it's about a very, very sad subject. But it's so cool in a way that I want to ask you about. It was the first time I'd seen two women on screen working together toward a common professional goal, but they weren't competing with each other. It was sort of like All the President's Men, except two women were executing this giant task together. How did it feel to play this supporting role kind of as the guide for these women in their work?
Well, I'm playing, again, a real-life, remarkable human being. A woman who is a major force in journalism and at the New York Times. It was a privilege, and it was a wonderful gift to be her. But it was an important film, and those two lead actresses,
Carrie and Zoe.
were the film, and they had a beautiful chemistry off camera and on camera, and it all just it was a. But we all were. There were many survivors that were in the film that were playing, that were
Ashley Judd
cast,
played herself.
that were cast, and some other people that weren't as well known as. So it was a communal effort. We all kind of gathered for the greater good to tell this story. It was very important to every single person on that set every single day.
Now I have to ask about Harvey because I know Miramax released The Station Agent. Did you ever have contact with him? Did you ever have any experiences with him that made you say, oh yes, none of this is surprising?
I didn't speak out about this because I wasn't sexually abused by Harvey, but I had big run-in with Harvey because I had Pieces of April and Station Agent, and he was obsessed with me going and supporting, which is false categorization, which a lot of people do in Hollywood, and I can't bear it. I was the leading lady of Station Agent. I was supporting in Pieces of April. It's called Pieces of April. Katie Holmes is April. So, and Bingham Ray, the great Bingham Ray, had already kind of started to campaign for me in supporting. And Harvey was obsessed with me being in. She said, you'll win the Oscar. You'll win the Oscar if you go in supporting. I said, no, I'm going in supporting for Pieces of April. He said, you're never going to work again. And he abused me. He was abusive and threatened me with, it was terrible. It was terrible, you guys. He was terrible.
I'm so sorry you went through that.
But let me tell you what happened. The SAG nominations come out. I'm one of a very small handful of people. I get nominated in Best Actress. Eat it, Harvey. Lick it, Harvey. Best Actress, Best Supporting for Pieces of April and Ensemble. And he had to sit with that. And, it was one of the greatest moments of my career to pull this double nomination off. And he was just, but he still, when I was at the SAG Awards, he would not let me sit at the table of Station Agent. I sat alone with strangers at another table. He's a terrible man, but look where he is now. Look who's free and alive.
And wearing fabulous gold boots.
These are vintage. Where's Betsy? Where come on, Betsy. Are these not your kind of boots? Bessie Hyman is here. She's a brilliant costume designer. I worked with her.
Hi.
And Bessie, I wore these. I wore these because I knew you'd love them. They're killing me.
Everything fabulous is uncomfortable, unfortunately. Thank you for sharing that story. And I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm glad you stuck to your guns. That's very brave of you, actually. So now we come to Lilly, and again, congratulations on this. I'm so glad someone told this story, and I'm so glad it was you. And just to refresh people's minds, you play American activist Lilly Ledbetter, who was the plaintiff in the United States Supreme Court case Ledbetter versus Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company regarding employment discrimination and pay equity. President Obama signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act into law in January of 2009. The film is co-written and directed by Rachel Feldman. And unfortunately, Lilly passed away just last fall at age 86. So I wanted to know how much time you were able to have with her, if at all, before the film.
I made a very specific choice because I held Lilly on such a high pedestal, on high. I literally held her on high. And you can't play someone looking up. You have to play someone looking straight forward. And so I made the decision, she was cool with this, of course, to meet her at the end. And so I said, listen, I had done my research, but I knew her, and I have an aunt from Alabama. I knew, I had to soften her accent a little because she was sometimes almost, it was difficult to understand her at times. But I knew I owed her everything. I owed her the best of me. And in order to give her everything, I had to just keep her. I didn't want to play her. I didn't want this to be a portrayal. I just wanted to exist. I didn't want this to be some biopic where I'm going to shout and scream and kind of show my wares. It's deadly. I just wanted to exist as Lilly. She was just this remarkable human being that came from nothing and changed the world.
What was the most difficult part of the process?
Well, I'll tell you. So, we, again, not a whole lot of money, whole lot of time, and I had to travel from 40 to 73. 73 was easy. But I had to be sometimes many different ages in a day. And about a month, 5 weeks into shooting, I'm exhausted at this point. I'm exhausted. I'm in every frame. I'm this. And it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm already in full hair and makeup, ready to shoot. We started early because it was all a daylight scene. We had to make before the sunset. And I walk on the set, and I'm literally like walking. I'm like this. And I'm like, oh God. And I look at Rachel and I say, Rachel, how old am I in this goddamn scene? How old am I? And she says, Patty, you're 40. And I'm like, I'm like,
hey, it's easy to lose track.
I just never, I said I had to play so many different ages in a day, and I was just like, it was the most glorious shoot. It was just, playing Lilly made me a better person. It made me a better actress. It made me care about things I probably hadn't thought about. And I was supposed to meet her in the Hamptons. We were debuting the film at the Hamptons Film Festival. And the Lillys were going to come together for the first time, and we were both so excited. And she got pneumonia, and it's very hard. The screening was so beautiful. Like, we got this 10-minute standing ovation. Vicky's family was there, her son-in-law, her grandsons. It was euphoric. and she died 2 days later. So it's very emotional. But look, she saw the movie before she passed, and she loved it. She was very.
So she did see it. That's
but
great.
she's not, she's not an effusive person. That's what I had to realize is she's not me. She's not outgoing. She was a very, very, very calm and.
She seems very
collected.
stoic.
Very stoic,
Right.
very withholding, and very possum trot Alabama. Just a woman who grew up with nothing, and she would never kick. Well, she was a ballroom dancer, so she would kick her legs, but she wouldn't be doing that in front of people,
Well, you're the actor here, so we have to remember that. So I see Lilly and She Said almost as companion pieces. Obviously, there's so much crossover. And I'm wondering, are there times in your career where you wish you had fought harder for yourself for equal pay or safer working conditions?
we, as women, we never questioned our pay. What were we thinking? We used to meet directors in hotel rooms. I met a big famous director once. He came out in a towel. And I was like, oh, hey. Like, what is... I mean, nothing happened, but it was like what we tolerated in the 80s and 90s was reprehensible. And we never questioned our pay. Never, ever questioned our pay. And
Did you ever push back to your team?
I started to push back eventually. And I say, wait. What's the other guy in the supporting part? What's he making? And they'd be like, well, I don't know how we find. I say, find out. Find out. So I started to get tough.
What was the turning point project for you when you started? Was it after High Art, where you had kind of grown to that
Well, High
acclaim?
Art was shot for no money, so that.
But
was,
sort
yeah.
of your reputation.
Maybe,
had
yes.
grown.
I think I had started to ask about money before that, but High Art on, I was like, Do
the nominations, even if they don't yield a win, do they help sort of push that a little bit for you?
Yes.
Okay.
No, High Art changed a lot for me. Yes. And I did actually, although I did Piece of April Stationery, so there was no money, but I got back end. I started to get like back ends on things. And no, Harvey still owes us all money.
Oh, probably a lot of people on that list. To
So
whom
many.
he owes.
So many.
So at this point in your career, what makes you happiest in terms of art? What makes you happiest as a person if you have a day off? What do you like to do to give yourself a break? How do you enjoy yourself?
Well, I like to lie in bed. I'm a little tired. I'm exhausted, actually. But
Understood.
No, I mean, I love New York. I never tire of New York. I love to walk everywhere in New York. I love going out in New York. I love kissing on all of my friends. I had 2 dogs at one point in my life. So all my friends who have dogs, I just go say, hey, do you want to have a drink and kiss on your dog?
Then you don't have to take care of the dog. You just get to snuggle with them.
I love to just go kiss on dogs. And that's my favorite pastime. I'm not kidding. Is that sad? Do I need a life?
I can't pass a dog either without wanting to.
No.
it. Yeah.
Cannot.
Is there a through line piece of advice that has kept you going during tough times that you would want to share?
You have to have the belief in yourself that you have to know, you have to believe in your talent. You have to know that what you're doing is what you want to be doing. You have to love yourself. And if you have friends around you that don't believe in you, get rid of them. And I mean this. You have to have the people around you that love you and believe in you. And because that's what's going to hold you steady when the slings and arrows come at you. And that's the only, because it's really all about yourself and succeeding. And, when you walk into an audition, I think, never ever pretend to be the character before you walk in, please, in an audition. Don't, people just want you to walk in as a person first and then let them see you become that person in front of their eyes. I think as actors, indulgence can be our downfall, and vanity. this business is brutal, but it's also just so glorious. And you get to work with really, really kick-ass people that you want to emulate, that you want to be around, that you want to have sex with, you know.
That's for another episode, Patty. Well, on that delicious closing thought, I would say thank you, Patricia Clarkson. My Hollywood Story is a production of Hippolyta Films and Entertainment. The series is written, produced, and hosted by me, Stacey Wilson Hunt. Executive producers for Hippolyta are Sonia Slutsky and Wendy Green. Series producers also include Daryl Young and Janet Grayson. Our camera operator, sound mixer, and editor is Ramiro Cantu. Original music for My Hollywood Story is by Madi Gavriel and Jenny Carr of Moon and Star. Our logo design was created by Brad Mitchell. And I would like to give a very special thanks to Soho House West Hollywood for being the official new home of our show. We couldn't do it without you. This episode of My Hollywood Story was recorded live at Soho House West Hollywood. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you think.